I never expected to discover my family's betrayal through a half-closed door. But there I was, frozen in the hallway of our Victorian home, hearing my parents discuss giving away my college fund to my sister Callista. Again. My name is Alara, and I've spent 19 years being the other daughter. The one who wasn't quite good enough, who didn't quite fit the mold. That night, I learned exactly how little I mattered. Callista's business is struggling, Greg. She needs this more than Alara needs art school. My mother's voice carried through the gap. Besides, painting isn't a real career path. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart hammering. The sketchbook I'd planned to show them felt heavy in my hands, filled with the portfolio pieces I'd spent months perfecting. What about the promise we made? My father's voice held a hint of hesitation. We told Alara. Promises change when circumstances do. My mother cut in. Callista has real responsibilities now. A husband, a business. Alara is just dreaming. Just dreaming. The words hit like a physical blow. I'd heard variations of this my entire life, but something about hearing it so baldly stated made my blood run cold. She'll understand, my mother continued. She always does. That's when I heard the soft click of designer heels on hardwood, Callista. Of course she was there too. My perfect older sister, who'd already burned through her own college fund and 3 failed business ventures. I'll pay her back, Callista said, her voice thick with what I recognized as fake tears. Once the boutique takes off, I'll make it right. I'd heard that before. Just like I'd heard every other empty promise she'd made, while taking everything I had. My art supplies when we were kids. My friends in high school. Now my future. The conversation continued, but I was already moving. Up the stairs, silent as a ghost, to my room. My hands shook as I pulled my emergency bag from under the bed, the one I'd packed months ago, but never had the courage to use. I thought about my grandmother Iris's offer to stay with her, the one I'd been too loyal to accept. Until now. As I slipped out into the night, my phone buzzed. A text from Callista. Family meeting in 10 minutes. Mom says it's important. I smiled grimly as I typed my response. Sorry, sis. I'm done being the family ATM. Good luck with the boutique. Then I blocked her number, adjusted my backpack, and started walking. They wanted to take my dreams? Fine. But they were about to learn that their reliable, understanding Alara had finally run out of understanding to give. Grandmother Iris's house smelled like oil paints and fresh coffee when I arrived at midnight. She didn't ask questions, just wrapped me in a hug that smelled of lavender and turpentine. Then led me to the kitchen where a mug of hot chocolate was waiting. Somehow, she'd known I was coming. Your mother called, Iris said, settling into her favorite chair. She's quite worked up. I gripped my mug tighter. Let me guess, she said I'm being dramatic and ungrateful? Actually, she seemed more concerned about what the neighbors might think. Iris's eyes twinkled. Apparently, running away to your grandmother's house isn't what respectable young ladies do. That startled a laugh out of me. Trust my mother to worry about appearances even now. My phone had been buzzing nonstop with messages from my family, but I couldn't bring myself to look at them yet. There's something you should see, Iris said, standing slowly. She disappeared into her study and returned with a wooden box, weathered with age. I've been waiting for the right moment to show you these. Inside were letters, dozens of them, yellowed with time. The first one I pulled out was dated 1965, written in elegant script. Dearest Iris, I know Mother and Father don't approve of your art. But please don't give up. Your talent deserves. Your great-aunt wrote those, Iris explained. She supported my dreams of becoming an artist when everyone else said I was being foolish. She paused, touching one of the letters gently. I let them talk me out of it. Married your grandfather instead, became the proper society wife everyone expected. But you still paint, I said, gesturing to the canvases that filled her home. Yes, but imagine what could have been if I'd had the courage you showed tonight. She squeezed my hand. Now, there's something else you should know. I found these while cleaning last week. She pulled out another stack of papers, bank statements. My eyes widened as I saw the numbers. Grandmother, this is my art fund, she said simply. The one I never used. It's been gathering interest for 60 years, and it's yours now. Enough for art school, and then some. I started to protest, but she held up a hand. I already updated the paperwork. Your parents can't touch it, and neither can Callista. My phone buzzed again, a text from Callista. Mom's hysterical. Dad's threatening to cut you off completely. Please come home so we can fix this. I showed the message to Iris, who snorted. They can't cut you off from what they've already taken, can they? For the first time since leaving home, I felt something other than anger and hurt. Something that felt a lot like hope. No, I said, reaching for my sketchbook. They can't. I had a new story to tell now, and I was going to paint it in colors they'd never seen coming. I was sorting through Grandmother Iris's art supplies when Callista showed up unannounced. She stood in the doorway, designer purse clutched tight, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen her. Your phone's been off for days, she said, stepping into the studio uninvited. Her eyes darted around, taking in the half-finished canvases and scattered brushes. Mom's beside herself. I'm sure she'll survive. I kept arranging paintbrushes, refusing to look at her. How'd you find me? Grandmother Iris isn't exactly hiding you. Callista moved closer, her expensive perfume mixing unpleasantly with the paint fumes. Look, there's something you need to know about the boutique. Let me guess, it's failing? I finally turned to face her. Again? Her face crumpled slightly. Nolan made some investments without telling me. Used the business as collateral. We're about to lose everything. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. And you need more money to fix it? That's why you're here. It's not just about money, Callista's voice cracked. Nolan's gone. He cleaned out our accounts yesterday and disappeared. That stopped me cold. I studied my sister's face, really looked at her for the first time in years. The designer clothes couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes or the slight tremor in her hands. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. But I can't help you. Can't or won't. Her eyes landed on the bank statements on Iris's desk. Grandmother gave you her art fund, didn't she? That could save the boutique. Give me time to… To what? I interrupted. To find another get-rich-quick scheme? Another charming husband to solve all your problems. That's not fair. Neither is taking my future again. I picked up a brush, dipping it in deep red paint. You want to know something funny? I actually believed you'd pay me back someday. Every single time. Callista reached for my arm. Elara, please. I'm pregnant. The brush clattered to the floor, leaving a crimson splash like a wound on the hardwood. What? 6 weeks. I haven't told anyone else. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I can't do this alone. I stared at my sister, the golden child, the perfect daughter, now standing in my grandmother's studio, looking completely lost. Part of me wanted to help her, to fall back into our old patterns. But then I remembered all the times she'd taken without asking, all the dreams she'd carelessly crushed. You're right, I said quietly. You can't do this alone. But neither could I, and that didn't stop anyone from taking everything I had. Elara. Go home, Callista. Tell Mom and Dad about the baby. I'm sure they'll figure something out. I turned back to my canvas. They always do for you. The door closed behind her with a soft click, but I kept painting, turning my sister's tears into art she'd never understand. The acceptance letter from the Florence Academy of Art arrived on a Tuesday morning. I stood in Iris's kitchen, hands shaking as I read the words again. We are pleased to offer you. The same day, my father showed up at the door. Your mother doesn't know I'm here, he said, looking uncomfortable in Iris's artistic chaos. His eyes landed on the letter in my hands. Is that? Yes. I didn't offer to let him read it. Full scholarship. He nodded, running a hand through his graying hair. Callista told us about Nolan. And the baby. I figured she would. The police are looking for him, Dad continued. But the money's gone. All of it, including what we gave her from your fund. I laughed, the sound bitter even to my own ears. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No, it's supposed to make you understand. He pulled out his phone, showing me a news article. Nolan's done this before. Different names, different cities. Always targeting wealthy families through their daughters. The room seemed to tilt. What? We should have checked more carefully. Should have listened when you said something felt off about him. Dad's voice cracked slightly. Your mother's pride. Our pride. We wanted so badly to believe Callista had found success. I stared at the article, at the photos of other women Nolan had conned. Does Callista know? Not yet. He hesitated. She's not doing well. The doctor's worried about her blood pressure, the baby. Don't. I cut him off. Don't try to make me feel guilty about this. I'm not. I'm trying to apologize. He looked around at Iris's paintings, really seeing them for the first time. We were wrong about your art, Alara. About a lot of things. The acceptance letter felt heavy in my hands. Florence. Everything I dreamed of. And yet, the detective thinks Nolan might come back, Dad said quietly. Try to get more money, through Callista. She's vulnerable right now, and your mother? She's not handling any of this well. I thought about Callista's face in the studio, the fear I'd ignored. What are you asking me to do? Nothing. You've earned this chance. He gestured to the letter. But if you wanted to come home, help us figure this out as a family, there's room for compromise now. I looked at my latest painting drying in the corner, a storm-dark landscape with a single path leading into light. The choice it represented felt suddenly, painfully clear. I'll think about it, I said finally. Dad nodded, turning to leave. At the door, he paused. The painting, it's beautiful. After he left, I sat in Iris's studio for hours, staring at the acceptance letter and wondering why victory suddenly felt so much like loss. Jasper Lynn's art studio was everything I'd imagined and nothing like home. Industrial windows flooded the space with natural light, and the walls were covered in massive canvases that made my own work feel small and safe in comparison. Your technique is solid, he said, studying my portfolio. But you're holding back. These pieces, they're technically perfect, but where's the rage? I shifted uncomfortably. I'm not sure what you mean. He held up my latest piece, a serene landscape with that hidden storm brewing in the background. You paint like someone trying not to make waves. But art isn't about being nice, Alara. It's about truth. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Another text from Callista. Nolan contacted me. Says he wants to make things right. Please call. I switched the phone off, but Jasper had noticed my reaction. Family drama? Something like that. He nodded, pulling out a blank canvas. Show me. What? Paint it. Whatever's eating at you, put it on canvas. No thinking, no planning. Just feel it. I picked up a brush, hesitating. Then I thought about Callista's tears, my father's apology, my mother's silence. The brush dipped into deep crimson, and suddenly I was painting like I never had before. Wild strokes, dark colors bleeding into each other. Hours passed. When I finally stepped back, I barely recognized my own work. The canvas was a storm of emotions, betrayal, anger, love, fear, all tangled together in a way that made my chest tight. Now that, Jasper said quietly, is honest. My phone had 7 missed calls. As I checked them, a text from Dad appeared. Callista's meeting Nolan tomorrow. Says she won't tell anyone where. Please help. Bad news. Jasper asked. My sister's about to do something stupid. I stared at my painting, all that raw emotion laid bare. And I have to decide if I'm going to let her. Sometimes the hardest art comes from the hardest choices. He gestured to his own work, beautiful, brutal pieces that told uncomfortable truths. What's your real masterpiece going to be, Alara? Revenge? Or something braver? I looked at my wild, honest painting, then at my phone. The next text was from my mother. I was wrong. About everything. Please don't let your sister face him alone. I have to go, I said, gathering my things. Jasper nodded. The Florence Academy called. They need your final decision by Friday. I paused at the door. Looking back at my painting, at all that beautiful, terrible truth. I'll let you know. The choice ahead felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the fall. I found Callista at the old pier where we used to feed ducks as kids. She was sitting on a bench, one hand resting on her barely visible bump, staring at the water. No sign of Nolan yet. "You shouldn't have come," she said without looking at me. "Neither should you." I sat beside her, scanning the empty boardwalk. "The police are looking for him. He says he has proof." Her voice cracked. "Videos, photos of mom and dad doing illegal things with the business. He'll release them unless you give him more money." I felt sick. "Money you don't have." She finally turned to me, eyes red-rimmed. I told him about grandmother's art fund. The world seemed to tilt sideways. "You what?" "He promised he'd destroy everything if I give him my future." The laugh that escaped me didn't sound human. Again, movement caught my eye, a familiar figure approaching from the shadows. Nolan, looking exactly as charming as the day he'd first swept into our lives. "My favorite sister-in-law," he called out, spreading his arms like this was a family reunion. "I knew you'd come." I stood, positioning myself between him and Callista. "The police are on their way." "No, they're not." His smile never wavered. "Because you're smart enough to know what happens if they show up. Your father's creative accounting, your mother's insider trading. All of it goes public. The Whitman family name becomes worthless." "You're lying." He pulled out his phone, showing us video clips, documents. "Your parents weren't as careful as they thought. Now, about that art fund." I felt Callista's hand grip mine the same way she used to when we were kids, and she was scared. But we weren't kids anymore, and I wasn't the same person who always gave in. "Keep the evidence," I said quietly. "Ilara, no." Callista started. "Release it all." I stepped forward. "Because I'm done protecting this family's precious reputation. Done sacrificing my dreams to fix everyone else's mistakes." Nolan's smile faltered. "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone, dialed, and put it on speaker. "Detective Martinez? I'm with Nolan Reed right now, and I have something you should hear." What happened next was chaos. Nolan running, police appearing from nowhere, Callista crying. But all I could think about was the acceptance letter in my pocket, getting crumpled as I held my sister while she sobbed. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying, "for everything." I watched the police lead Nolan away, wondering if revenge was supposed to feel this hollow. The family reputation was about to be destroyed, my sister's life was in shambles, and my dream of Florence felt further away than ever. Sometimes winning feels an awful lot like losing. The headlines hit the next morning. Whitman family business under investigation. Mother was in tears on our front porch when I arrived, clutching a newspaper like it was a life preserver. "How could you?" she whispered. "Our reputation was built on lies." I stepped past her into the house, where Dad and Callista sat in the living room. The same room where they decided to take my future. Just like everything else in this family. Dad stood, looking older than I'd ever seen him. The police called. Nolan's agreed to testify against his other victims' families in exchange for leniency. Other families? Callista's hand went to her stomach. There were others? 7, I said quietly. All with daughters like you. All too proud to admit they'd been conned. Mother slammed the newspaper down. And now everyone knows we're frauds. The charity board, our friends. Stop. My voice cut through her hysteria. Just stop pretending this is about reputation. This is about control. It always has been. That's not. You controlled Callista with expectations. You controlled me by taking away my chances. I pulled out my acceptance letter, now worn from constant handling. But you can't control this anymore. Callista stood shakily. The baby? It's not Nolan's. The room went silent. Mother sank into a chair. What? Dad's voice was barely audible. I lied because I was scared. There is no baby. Callista's tears fell freely now. I thought if everyone was focused on me again, trying to save me. You wouldn't have to admit you'd failed, I finished. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her final lie had been an attempt to protect herself from the truth. "The police want statements from all of us," Dad said, breaking the heavy silence. "About the business, about Nolan?" "I'll tell them everything," Mother said suddenly. We all turned to look at her. "About the accounting, the trading, everything. It's time to stop pretending we're perfect." I studied my mother's face, seeing for the first time the cracks in her carefully maintained facade. "Why now?" "Because I saw your painting at Jasper's studio." She met my eyes. "The one with all the rage and pain. That's what I did to you. What I did to both of you." Callista reached for my hand, not to take this time, but to hold on. "What happens now?" I looked at my acceptance letter, then at my broken, imperfect family. "Now we stop pretending. And maybe start being honest about who we really are. Even if it means losing everything?" Mother asked. "Sometimes," I said, thinking of Grandmother Iris's words, "you have to lose everything to find what matters." The silence that followed felt like the first honest moment we'd shared in years. 6 months later, I stood in Grandmother Iris's studio, surrounded by her lifetime of hidden artwork. Each piece told a story of dreams deferred, of choices made and unmade. The exhibition opening was tomorrow, and my hands shook as I hung the final painting, her self-portrait from 1965, the year she chose family over art. "She would have loved this," Callista said from the doorway. She looked different now, softer somehow, without the perfect facade she'd always maintained. Making her dreams public at last. I adjusted the lighting on the portrait. I'm not sure she would have. Grandmother Iris was private about her art. "Like you used to be?" The question hung between us like smoke. My acceptance to Florence had been deferred a year, my choice this time. There were things I needed to finish here first. "Mother's asking about visiting," Callista said carefully. "After her community service hours." I nodded, remembering the court hearing where our mother had stood straight-backed, accepting responsibility for years of financial deceptions. Dad was still working with investigators, untangling the web of lies that had propped up our family's reputation. "Did you see the latest piece?" I led Callista to my corner of the studio. The painting showed two girls by a pond, feeding ducks. But look closer, and you'd see their reflections told a different story. One sister always reaching, the other always turning away. Callista's breath caught. "Is that us? As we were, not as we could be." The studio door opened again. Jasper Lynn entered, carrying a package. "Special delivery from Italy." My heart jumped. The Florence Academy's logo was clearly visible on the envelope. "Open it," Callista urged. I shook my head, setting it aside. "Tomorrow. After the exhibition." "Still trying to control everything?" Jasper asked with a knowing smile. "No. Just learning when to let things happen naturally." Later that night, alone in the studio, I added the final touch to Grandmother Iris's exhibition, a small painting I'd found hidden behind her self-portrait. It showed a young woman, brush in hand, standing at a crossroads. On one path lay family obligations, on the other artistic freedom. But she'd painted herself taking neither road, instead creating her own path between them. On the back, she'd written, "The choice isn't always between two wrongs or two rights. Sometimes the choice is to make your own way." I touched the Florence Academy letter in my pocket, thinking about paths and choices, and the art of becoming yourself. Tomorrow would bring its own revelations. But for now, in this quiet studio filled with 3 generations of Whitman women's dreams, I finally felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting free.